The metallic hull of the refugee transport Exodus Dawn groaned under the stress of another hyperspace jump as it limped toward the Sol system. Inside the cramped quarters, James Martinez pressed his face against the small porthole, watching the stars blur past in streaks of silver light. Beside him, Lisa Chen clutched a datapad containing their entire civilization's history, what little remained of it. Another rejection from the Centauri Coalition, Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible over the ship's laboring engines. That makes 17 systems that have refused us sanctuary. James turned from the window, his weathered face showing the strain of months spent searching for a new home. The Exodus Dawn carried the last 10,000 survivors of Kepler 442b, their world destroyed not by war or natural disaster, but by something far worse, a galactic quarantine order. The Zephyrian Empire had deemed their entire species genetically unstable after a single incident involving James's younger brother. During a diplomatic mission, Marcus had demonstrated an unusual ability to resist Zephyrian mind control technology, something the Empire considered a dangerous mutation that could spread throughout the galaxy if left unchecked. Within days, the order came down from the Galactic Council: immediate evacuation and permanent banishment from all civilized systems. No appeals, no negotiations, just exile. The humans of Earth responded to our distress beacon, announced Captain Torres, over the ship's intercom, his voice carrying a note of cautious hope. They've agreed to meet with us. Lisa looked up from her datapad, eyes wide with surprise. Earth? The isolated world that refused to join the Galactic Council? James nodded, slowly. He remembered the stories, a blue-green planet whose inhabitants had been deemed too aggressive and unpredictably violent by the Council centuries ago. Earth had been effectively cut off from galactic civilization, labeled as a quarantine, world whose species was too dangerous for diplomatic contact. Ironic, isn't it? James said with a bitter smile. The outcasts seeking refuge with the outcasts. As the Exodus Dawn dropped out of hyperspace, the Sol system materialized before them. James pressed against the porthole again, marveling at the sight of the third planet, a stunning marble of blue and white that seemed to glow against the cosmic darkness. Unlike the sterile, perfectly terraformed worlds of the Council, Earth appeared wild and untamed. Incoming transmission from Earth vessel Defiance, crackled the communications officer. They're requesting permission to dock. Within hours, a delegation of humans had boarded their ship. James and Lisa found themselves face to face with Admiral Sarah Henderson, a stern-looking woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless battles. We know what it's like, Henderson said simply after Lisa had finished explaining their situation. The Council branded us as monsters 300 years ago, said we were too violent, too unpredictable, too human for their perfect galaxy. And yet you survived, Lisa observed, studying the Admiral's confident bearing. Henderson's lips curved into a predatory smile. Survived? We thrived. While the Council built their sterile utopia, we prepared for the day they'd inevitably need us. James leaned forward. Need you for what? War, Henderson replied matter-of-factly. The Zephyrian Empire has been expanding aggressively for the past 50 years. They've been using their mind control technology to subjugate entire species, turning them into willing slaves. The Council's been too afraid to act, hoping diplomacy would solve everything. Lisa's datapad chimed with an incoming message. Her face paled as she read. The Zephyrians just annexed the Altair system. The Council offered no resistance. Because they can't, Henderson explained. Every Council species can be controlled by Zephyrian neural manipulation. Every species except two. She gestured toward James and Lisa. Your people from Kepler 442b and us. The realization hit James like a physical blow. That's why they quarantined us, not because we're dangerous, but because we're immune to their control, and they couldn't risk that immunity spreading, Henderson confirmed. But now the Zephyrians are moving toward the galaxy's core. The Council worlds are falling one by one, and their leaders are finally desperate enough to break their own rules. Lisa looked up from her datapad again, her expression shifting from despair to something resembling hope. There's another message here. From the Galactic Council. They're asking Earth to intervene. Henderson laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. 27 separate messages in the last week, each one more desperate than the last. They want our protection, but they still won't officially lift our quarantine status. James stood and walked to the porthole, gazing down at Earth's surface. In the distance, he could see the lights of vast cities, orbital platforms, and the sleek forms of what could only be warships more advanced than anything the Council possessed. "What do you intend to do?" he asked. "We're going to save them," Henderson replied simply. "Not because they deserve it, but because it's the right thing to do, and we're going to need your help." Lisa joined James at the window. Below them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, a world of survivors who had refused to bow to galactic prejudice. "Our people have nowhere else to go." "Then welcome home," Henderson said, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "Earth has always been a refuge, for the unwanted and the feared. Your people will find sanctuary here, and together we'll remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us in the first place." As the Exodus Dawn began its descent toward Earth's surface, James felt something he hadn't experienced since leaving Kepler 4 hope. The galaxy had banished them both, deemed them too dangerous for civilized society. But perhaps that was exactly what civilization needed. Not the sterile perfection of the Council, but the wild, unpredictable strength of those who refused to surrender. The quarantine worlds were about to show the galaxy what they'd been missing.